Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. So today we're going to be looking at the different brand set talents and looking at the ones that have received a buff or the ones that remain the same. Now what I've done is I have a list here in my hand and I'm going to be just crossing that list off as I'm actually discussing these different brand set talents and their changes, okay? So let's jump right in. The first one that we have is self-adjusting. This has now received a change to 30% armor regeneration, and it's a unique talent that does not stack, meaning if you have it on one piece of brand set, then you cannot have it on something else as you're going on. All right, so cross that off the list. The second one I have here is destructive. It has received a 40% explosive damage just by itself, and it also does not stack, so cross that off the list. For those of you who were wondering, another one too, especially for the skill power people, is empowered. Empowered is 20% skill power. I don't think that's changed, or maybe it's 10% on the regular game. Hey, you guys tell me, you skill power folk. I'm sure some of you are probably itching to know exactly how this will probably affect your builds, so here you go. Now the other one is centered. Centered I think has still remained the same, and so it has not received any changes at all. And then spotter obviously took a huge nerf, and I didn't run any spotter builds. I didn't even get there before they nerfed it. So for those who are running spotter, well, here's your new spotter now. Now hard hitting, I made a video about it by itself, now has 25% damage to elites versus 10% that it was nerfed to from the original game, and now it doesn't stack. But there are still ways to get your full 100% damage to elites. So for those who had 100% damage to elites, don't worry, you can still get that number as well. Now we have Insulated. Insulated now has 30% hazard protection. This is definitely a buff, but you can't stack the talent, so you're going to have to build more creatively as you're going. I don't think Creeping Death says status effects spreads to the nearest enemy within 25 minutes can occur once every 5 seconds. I don't 25 meters, sorry. I don't know if it's received a nerf or a buff, but hey, those of you who have been running Creeping Death, well, you get to tell me if it's received a nerf or a buff, or the patch notes can tell us. And to be honest, I'm not reading sleeping pill patch notes. Thank you very much. All right. Unbreakable, 70% max armor is repaired when your armor is depleted. Armor kits used within the next 7 seconds are not consumed. I think this received a little bit of a tweak, and pretty much, whatever it is, hey, who cares? Bloodsucker, 25% bonus max armor stacked, all that good stuff. Max stack is 6. We talked about destructive. Hardened is, in my opinion, going to be one of the better talents to run now, because this now gives you a 20% of your armor, and it does stack, so you can run hardened I think on your chest piece and on your backpack to get an extra 40% armor. So that's definitely something you can look towards. Berserk now gives you 10% weapon damage for every 20% max armor depleted. The one thing about Berserk now is it now requires 7 of the offensive versus I think it required 9 in the main game. Maybe I might be wrong. Also, another brand set talent that I wanted to show you guys that's received a huge buff is Capacitative. Ooh, 50% skill duration for Capacitative. So this has definitely received a buff, but it doesn't stack, so you're going to have to play very smart in how you make your builds. And now that we have a lot more of the brand sets, trust me, they do have a lot more mod slots, so you'll be able to do some really creative things. And so for those of you who have skill builds, I don't really know much about skill builds, but if you've been looking at the brand sets as I've been looking at them, you'll know not to throw the baby out with the bathwater just yet, because there's some really cool brand sets pieces that are coming in. I know for sure that the Heraldi knee pads do have a defensive and a utility mod slot, so you can get 2 utilities on there, and I think it also has a talent as well. So be patient and wait till everything actually comes into context, and then we can start looking at some of those things. On the ropes, obviously received a huge nerf, 15%. Damage is increased when your skills are on cooldown. Definitely something that you have to build around. Skilled, I think skilled is still a 25% chance for your skills to reset. I don't think it received any kind of nerfs or buffs in the sense of the way the build works. There's another talent that's here that I actually do want to show that I think is actually adding a very huge value, and that is Devastating. Devastating now has 10% weapon damage by itself. Now the talent does not stack. What that means though is it now stacking now allows for you to be able to run this on the gloves and get this extra 10% weapon damage, or you can run Devastating on some holsters, which holsters that have the regular talents, you can run Devastating on there. And if you have a space to run maybe an offensive mod, you can then run that offensive mod. So we're not going to be really reliant now on the Hildegard holster. We can now use a diverse number of holsters in order to still leverage this 10% weapon damage and whatever the attributes are given to us, and perhaps maybe one mod slot in that case. So this, I think, is actually a good thing if I'm thinking off the top of my head about my build. Another good talent that's also received somewhat of a change, and I think a decent touch, is to order. Grenades can now be cooked. It says you gain 15% bonus armor while aiming grenades. Now, to be very honest, I've never used to order. Now, I want to ask, for those of you who've ever used it, does it have this 15% bonus armor when you're aiming your grenades, or does it not? So that's a question for y'all. Now, this kneecap talent, I think, has been touched a little bit, once every 30 seconds. If you get hit in the legs for 10 seconds or whatever, hey, that's the talent. If you use this kneecap, here it is. Also, Obliterate I think it remains the same. 30% critical hit damage for 15 seconds when you deplete an enemy's armor or an enemy's whatever, yeah. And then what's the name? Precise also still gives you 15% headshot damage, but you cannot stack it now. So Heraldi is going to be pretty much going to be your your, I would say, your source of getting the headshot damage and also getting some other cool stuff. What's this one? This is Terminate. Terminate, I think, still remains the same. 35% skill damage for 15 seconds. Let me just go straight to the ones that I know definitely have received a change. Surgical, yes, 15% critical hit chance for Surgical. Now, it does not stack, but it's still better because you can run it on the holster and you can run it on your gloves. So either way, you can still get Surgical doing you some really good work in terms of crit chance. So for now, these are the items that I have in terms of brand set talents that are available here on this character. And so for those of you who were wondering what it would look like on your builds, you can probably start doing the math. I have deleted a lot of the builds that I used most of these talents to make, so I don't really have much of a point of reference except for, you know, talents like hard hitting and, you know, hard hitting. And so that's pretty much most of them. Oh, before I go, I forgot one of them. Bloodsucker, or Bloodlust, sorry, has definitely received a slight nerf. It says weapon swapping grants 15% weapon damage for 5 seconds. The buff is lost for 5 seconds if you weapon swap while it's active. So they really nerfed this into the ground, and you know, people who may try to use this and possibly maybe use it with Berserk are probably not going to be able to gain the benefit of what it does. But it's still going to be okay to give you additional 15% weapon damage for 5 seconds. So it's not the end of the world in terms of if you were running a Bloodlust build, but this is definitely something that has received a change at the same time. So that's all I have for now, for real. Thank you very much for those of you who have been patient in watching this informal presentation of these videos. There is so much information, and I prefer to actually, you know, just piece the information and break it down, because people will have different interests, and reading the whole patch notes I don't think really serves everybody, because not because the patch notes aren't good, but because the patch notes are actually too big in order to serve everybody. So perhaps you'll find something you're looking for from the catalog of videos that I've done in the past few hours. So once again, I appreciate y'all's help, and I'll use this opportunity to say thanks for 17,000 subscribers. I'm probably going to try my best to do a more formal video in order to just officially say thank you to you guys. Okay, I need to get out of here. Peace.